Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone. In this video, I will share material about one of the nutritional intervention. The topic that I will be explained is about intermittent fasting. Before we start the material, let me introduce myself. My name is Terrana Willma. I'm a student in the nutrition department of the Health Polytechnic of the Ministry of Health Semarang. The title of the material that I will be explaining is Intermittent Fasting as an Intervention for Obesity and Diabetes. The content that I will share is, the first is introduction, second is intermittent fasting in general, third is intermittent fasting and obesity, fourth is intermittent fasting and diabetes, then related research about intermittent fasting, and the last is conclusion. First, we will explain about the introduction. Intermittent fasting, or IF, refers to a regular period of time with a very limited or no caloric intake, that is, a period of voluntary abstinence from food and fluid intake, or also called the energy deficiency method. Generally, it consists of 16-hour daily fast, a 24-hour fast on alternate days, or a 2-day-a-week fast on non-consecutive days. During fasting, calorie consumption often varies from 0 to 25% compared to regular caloric needs. Consumption on non-fasting day can be limited to the consumption of certain food or research to achieve a certain caloric intake of up to 125% of regular caloric needs. Intermittent fasting can be carried out with unrestricted consumption when not fasting or in conjunction with other dietary intervention. As the World Health Organization states, obesity has tripled worldwide since 1975, affecting 13% of the entire adult population in 2016. A new analysis of the United States body mass index suggests that by 2030 and 30, 1 in 2 adults will be obese. As the prevalence of obesity increases, the prevalence of other chronic diseases also increases, such as type 2 diabetes. Currently, more than 90% of people with type 2 diabetes are overweight or obese. It has been proven that a series of modifiable risk factors favor this pathology, among which are excessive nutrition and a sedentary life. Next, we will talk about intermittent fasting in general. Intermittent fasting is a diet pattern that cycles between periods of fasting and eating on a regular schedule involving various types, mainly intermittent energy restriction and time-restricted fasting. Intermittent fasting applied to lose weight and reduce the health harm caused by obesity. In recent studies, more and more different points of view on weight loss rates mediated by intermittent fasting. Meanwhile, other effects such as glycemia regulation have been proposed in recent years. Compared to the traditional way to lose weight, intermittent fasting concentrates on specific meal times and energy intakes, rather than uniquely limiting energy intake. Diet and diet intervention with exercises is a basic method of losing weight. Temporal rhythms are considered when time-limited fasting is performed. Okay, next, as an emerging unique weight loss method, the commonly known intermittent fasting has two main forms. The first is intermittent energy restriction, or IER, and second is time restricted fasting, or TRF. Intermittent energy restriction, or EIR, also known as periodic fasting, or PF, is a more common pattern of intermittent fasting involving short periods of substantial energy restriction, approximately 75 until 100%, interspersed with a normal diet. IER primarily promotes weight loss by reducing energy intake. It involves a period of fasting days followed by a period of eating days. Then the time restricted fasting, or TRF, is daily fasting pattern that appears in the context of circadian rhythms, which is led by daily change with the alternation of light and dark. Most species store energy during the day when food is available, or meal period, for use for the rest of the day, without disturbing fitness and vitality. Alternating cycles of eating and fasting are called fasting physiology, or physiology of fasting. Next is table of difference between IER and TRF. Features logic involved in intermittent energy restriction is reduction, compensatory metabolic responses, and in time restricted fasting is circadian rhythms. The features main principle of weight loss in intermittent energy restriction is the induction of energy intakes, but in time restricted fasting is the induction of energy intake time. Features fasting period in intermittent energy restriction is a set of days, normally in a week, but in time restricted fasting no more than 24 hours. Feature intakes in fasting period in intermittent energy restriction is strictly controlled energy intake, but in time restricted fasting is only water or nothing. Then the features common patterns in intermittent energy restriction is twice per a week fast, every other day fast, or ADF. But in time restricted fasting is 16 by 8 diet and 15 by 9 diet. Now I will explain about how intermittent fasting works. During a meal, carbohydrates in food are broken down into glucose. Glucose absorbs through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream, and it's transported to various organs, where it serves as the major energy source. Excess glucose is stored for later use in the liver and adipose tissue in the form of glycogen and fats. In between meals, when the body is in the fasted state, the liver converts glycogen back to glucose to keep supplying the body with energy. Typically, an inactive person takes about 10 to 12 hours to use up the glycogen stores, although someone who exercises may do so in much less time. Once the reserve of glycogen in the liver is depleted, the body taps into energy stores in adipose tissue. This is when fats are broken down into free fatty acids, which are then converted into additional metabolic fuel in the liver. Thus, if the fasted state lasts long enough, the body burns fat for energy and loses extra fat. Losing the extra fat is translated into a range of associated health benefits. Next is about intermittent fasting and obesity. Obesity is a world health problem that has been designated as a disease by the World Health Organization and continues to be a major focus of public health efforts around the world. Obesity is largely due to the ratio of excess fat and subsequently causes many other metabolic diseases. These complications mainly include hypertension, hyperlipidemia, diabetes mellitus, coronary heart disease, and stroke. Intermittent fasting appears as an effective newborn method that may be very beneficial for obesity. There have been several animal studies and several human trials that have shown the encouraging effects of intermittent fasting on obesity. In addition to the main benefits of reducing weight gain, intermittent fasting also affects visceral obesity and reduces cardiometabolic risks, regulates metabolism, restores muscle function, and improves glucose homeostasis. In the next slide, we will talk about intermittent fasting and diabetes. Obese patients are 3 until 4 times more likely to develop diabetes than non-obese patients. As the most common type of diabetes, diabetes type 2 accounts for 90% of diabetic patients. Its pathogenesis is involved in the secretion of insulin, damage by cell B, the pancreas, and incompetent insulin-sensitive tissues to respond appropriately to insulin, which means that the patients must rely on external insulin. Clinical care has been committed to improve insulin sensitivity, where intermittent fasting is also claimed to play a beneficial role in diabetes type 2. The collected evidence has verified the beneficial effects of intermittent fasting on animals' diabetes and type 2 diabetes patients. Meanwhile, it should be noted that the impact of intermittent fasting is riskier on diabetic patients than obese patients. In the next slide, I have related research about intermittent fasting with obesity or with diabetes mellitus. The first is, the name of author is Kim in 2019, with the subject is 7-week-old male with the regimen is 2/1 isocaloric intermittent fasting regimen with duration K is 16 weeks. The result is weight is decreased and higher insulin sensitivity under HFD. Next, the second is the name of the author is Sun4 in 2018. The subject is obese participant aged 21 till 70 years with the BMI is 30 until 45. The regimen is IER and continuous energy. The duration K is 12 months. Result is both weight is decreased, waist circumference is decreased, and the triglyceride is decreased. And the last is the author name is Hutchison in 2019 with the subject is adult age 55 plus minus 3 years and with the BMI is 33.9 plus minus 0.8 and the regimen is TRFE in 8 AM to 5 PM and TRFD in 12 PM to 9 PM. The duration K is 7 days with the result is glucose incremental area is decreased, fasting triglyceride is decreased, mean fasting glucose is decreased in TRFE but not in TRFD. The last slide is the conclusion obtained from the presentation of the material that I have given. Now we can conclude that intermittent fasting is a type of diet that has been shown to play a role in weight loss and can be a form of intervention for obesity problems and as an adjunct therapy for non-communicable diseases such as type 2 diabetes. However, in people with type 2 diabetes should be more careful when treated with intermittent fasting. Patients should ensure the involvement of their doctor to ensure that the interval of not eating is tolerable as the potential risk increases. I think that's all from me, and sorry if I make some mistake, and if you have a question you can comment down below, and see you on the next video. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.